Hello, welcome to this series. This is the first episode of this series where we are going to talk about Nuget packages in .NET and how to, use Nuget packages to create a more modular application. We are going to talk about the different concepts, and I am going to implement things in Visual Studio using a real application and a meaningful domain. So this is the first episode. For this, playlist for this course, you do not need to know anything about Nuget. Your prior experience with C Sharp and Visual Studio and .NET is of course, necessary in order to better understand what is, this topic about. But if you have, some experience with these three things like C Sharp, Visual Studio, and .NET, you're fine. And of course, you can, get the code for this series using the link I have provided in the description of this episode. This episode is probably going to be like, this series is probably going to have like 10 episodes. And we are going to, as I said, go through the theoretical stuff. And then we are going to implement things in Visual Studio. I have created this project, I am going to create, separate, branches for each episode. Right now, I've got this, episode one branch. So we're going to start with episode one. We're going to, create things and talk about the different, concepts. So let's get started. This is the first episode, Introduction to Nuget and our project setup. Our goal is to understand what Nuget is, learn how Nuget fits in the modern .NET development, and set up our, solution, our kind of, sample project so that we can better understand the concepts of Nuget and, implement them. So Nuget is the official package manager for .NET. If you have, worked with Node.js, you probably know NPM, right? Or pip in Python, which is used to kind of install packages, update them, remove them, and so on. So it's a package manager for .NET, and it enables three very important things: distribution of reusable .NET libraries, version control, and dependency resolution whenever your code has a dependency on some package, right? And encapsulation of the code that you have written once. So you have written like a piece of code, you want to encapsulate it, and then you want to be able to reuse that piece of code across your applications, and you want a solid, robust way to control the different versions and dependencies. We are going to talk about each one of these in full detail, in depth, so that you have a better idea of what Nuget is. So a Nuget package is like a file. So when I say a Nuget package, I mean a file with this extension, right? So this is the extension of a Nuget package, NUPKG, Nuget package. It's basically a zip file. So you can, rename this file and change the extension to zip and then open it in your Windows Explorer and, investigate the content. So it is a zip file containing some assemblies or DLL files, some metadata, and optionally some other files like source files, build targets, and content. We are going to examine Nuget package files in this tutorial. So without Nuget as our package manager, working with .NET libraries would be far more complex. You would have to do a lot of things on your own. It would be very, time consuming, very tedious, and of course, very error prone. And I am going to, compare our life as a developer without Nuget versus with Nuget as our package manager. So without Nuget, the manual workflow, meaning that you would be in charge of, doing a lot of things on your own. So whenever you want to, for example, reuse a piece of code, a library that has been developed by someone else, you would have to go to different places like GitHub, project websites, forums to discover libraries that have been developed by other, developers that can do what you want to implement. So there's no centralized repository to search for the libraries that you would like to use in your projects. And then downloading the binaries or the source code file. So without Nuget as our package manager, you'd probably have to manually download DLL files or clone entire repositories. You need to verify the integrity, the license, the compatibility of those packages with your applications. So again, very time consuming, very tedious. It wouldn't produce any value. So as developers, we would like to focus on implementing business requirements to produce value, right? So if we do not have a centralized, package manager, we would have to spend a lot of time doing tedious things that do not produce any value. But of course, fortunately, using Nuget as our package manager can kind of help us with doing all of these, time consuming and error prone tasks. So again, without Nuget, you would have to manage the different references in your application. So you'd manually add each DLL to your project using, for example, add reference, and then there is no automatic handling or, handling of transitive dependencies. And when I say transitive dependencies, we're gonna, explore transitive dependency in full detail. Transitive dependency means that you've got like a DLL which depends on another DLL. So your first DLL depends on, that second DLL. So your application has a transitive dependency on that second DLL, dependencies of dependencies. So, managing transitive dependencies without Nuget is going to be very difficult. So using Nuget as our package manager, we would be able to manage these different references with ease. Let's talk about version hell as well. So without Nuget, you'd have to track versions manually across multiple projects. So different libraries might have different versions. If you do not have a package manager, you would have to deal with different versions on your own. And these versions, more often than not, they have conflicts with one another. So conflicting versions of the same library would break your builds or cause runtime errors. Updating libraries would be very difficult. So you'd have to revisit each library's website or repository, check for new versions, update the new versions, integrate them in your applications, update the references, check for integrity, and so on. And then sharing your own code would be difficult. So suppose you have written a code that you want to share with a community of developers. So you'd have to manually zip up your DLLs or distribute them, via email, internal servers, Git, and so on. So there is no standard format or metadata like versions, authors, targets that you can, attach to your DLLs so that other developers can use them efficiently. But right now we do have Nuget, right? So Nuget gives us a streamlined workflow for working with different .NET libraries. First off, we have centralized discovery, meaning that using Visual Studio and the CLI that .NET provides, we can go on and add packages and install, packages using Nuget CLI, which is something that we will, talk about in future episodes. Or we can, of course, go to Nuget Gallery, the website of Nuget, to find the packages that we want and install them. So we have a centralized place, a centralized approach when it comes to finding, the different libraries that we would like to use in our applications. So using .NET CLI, you can, for example, add the serialized Nuget package to your application and you're done. You can start using it immediately. So it installs the package, the different transitive dependencies, and updates your CSPatch file to include the reference to this, for example, serialized package. Dependency resolution. So using Nuget, dependency resolution will be automated. So you can automatically install all required dependencies, including the transitive ones, which would cause us a lot of trouble if we didn't have Nuget. So you can, you can rest assured that Nuget can find the compatible versions of those dependencies, the versions that are compatible with your code, and Nuget will basically take care of everything for you. Then you've got semantic versioning support. Semantic versioning, or SemVer, is something that I will talk about in depth in future episodes. So you can pin your versions, you can allow version ranges or auto update. This gives you a lot of flexibility of kind of using different versions of the same library. We are going to talk about semantic versioning in full detail in future episodes. Updates of the packages are going to be a breeze as well using Nuget. You can, for example, list the packages that are outdated. You can add some packages using the specific version that you want, and so on. Publishing your own packages would be very easy to do. So again, suppose you have written some piece of code that you would like to share with other developers. You can build or pack your code as a Nuget package and then publish it, for example, through Nuget.org, which is like the gallery for Nuget packages, and give public access to other developers. Or you can, for example, create Azure artifacts, GitHub packages, private feeds. If you are working in a company, you can have private feeds for developers working inside of that company. Build integration. Nuget integrates with MS Build and CSproj system to ensure correct package restore and versioning at build time. What I would like to do in the future is to create a playlist about MS Build. So again, the integration between Nuget and MS Build makes the integration and the build process of your application very easy and automated, of course. So these are some of the advantages of using Nuget, and we are going to talk about them again, revisit them in more detail in future episodes. And I also talked about the the problems that we would go through if we didn't have Nuget as our centralized package manager. So again, as I told you, we are going to implement things in a real domain, airline management system. This is going to be like a domain where we would create different entities, different concepts, different modules, if you will, related to an airline company, like, for example, booking, flight scheduling, passenger management, pricing engine, and so on. And then we would, implement the different concepts of working with Nuget packages in this application. So each of these will become reusable libraries, some of which will package as Nuget libraries. So what you need to do, what you need to have in order to create the code that I'm going to show you is Visual Studio. I'm using Visual Studio 2022, .NET 8. You need to have Nuget CLI installed. It is very easy to install. You just need to go to Microsoft website, download Nuget CLI, and add it to the path environment variable in your Windows. Git as our version control. And if we want to distribute our Nuget packages on Nuget.org, we will have to have an account, which is something that I will do in future. So let's do this. I am going to basically create a solution. I am going to create two projects for now. So a class library with .NET 8, and this is the airline.core for now. Then I am going to create these classes in the airline core, which is our class library. So this is the solution that I have right now. So this solution consists of a console application and a class library. So I am going to add a new class here, and then I am going to create my flight class. So let's go on and create the different properties. We will decouple things in future episodes, but right now everything is going to be inside airline.core. So I'm going to create different properties. These are easy. I mean, if you have some experience with Visual Studio and C Sharp, these are going to be very easy for you, right? And then I am going to add a second class as well. So the second class is called the booking. As you know, the domain that I have picked for this series is like an airline company with different meaningful entities like booking or flight. And then we are going to decouple these. We are going to move them into their own libraries in future episodes and pack them up as Nuget packages. So these are the two classes that I have created. Now I am going to create a console app, which is something that I have already done, and then I am going to write this code to create a flight, and then write the flight number and the departure date and so on. So inside of this console application, I have a reference to airline core, and what I am going to do is to write the code for this console app. Very easy to understand, right? So basically a class library and a console application that references that class library and is creating an object of type flight. So we can run this, we can test this, and of course the summary of this episode is that we know what Nuget is right now. It is our package manager in .NET. We have set up a simple solution. It's kind of modular, so we have one single class library, a console application, and we have basically laid the groundwork to build, package, and share our logic. So inside of the solution, I am going to rebuild everything so there are no errors, and now I am going to run this code. So I am going to go to my airline console app and then run my code. As you can see, I get the output here. So that's it. I know that we didn't do anything special in this episode, but that is only the beginning. We have laid the groundwork. We are just getting started. We have some idea of Nuget and as our package manager, and in future episodes we are going to build upon what we have created in this episode. So if you enjoyed this episode, as always, keep watching, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.